guys are gonna think I'm crazy after this video. Welcome back to Haley's Comment, or hello if you are new here. On this channel, besides conspiracy theories and Mandela effects, I make story times and mukbangs and advice, that kind of stuff, so if that sounds interesting at all to you, you know what to do. In this video, I'm going to share with you a few ideas on how Mandela effects came to be. This is an entertainment video only. I'm not claiming any of these things to be true. They are just theories. However, believe what you want to believe, do your own research, make your own thoughts. If you're well versed in Mandela effects, there will be a time marker for you to skip ahead if you are wanting to. So a Mandela effect is when mass amounts of people misremember the same, like, oddly specific detail. The term was coined when Nelson Mandela died. So he died in 2013. For those of you unfamiliar, Nelson Mandela was the president of South Africa, but before he was the president, he went to prison for political related offenses. A lot of people remember him dying in prison. People say that they have vivid memories of like going home and watching the news the night that he died, and so when he died in 2013, a lot of people were like, oh, what? Like, he already died. And it would be one thing if it was just like a few people, but so many people remember him dying 2 decades before he actually did. One of the most popular ones is Berenstein Bears. A lot of people remember it being called Berenstein Bears, when in actuality it was called Berenstain Bears, like a stain on your shirt.
The Berenstein Bears.
I did think it was called Berenstein Bears, but I don't really think that one's all that interesting just because maybe we all just heard it wrong. But one that's more interesting is
mirror, mirror on the wall.
That line was never actually said. What was said was
magic mirror on the wall.
Magic mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest one of all?
everyone says mirror, mirror on the wall, like that's a very common saying. Apparently we all misremembered it. Another really interesting one is from Alice in Wonderland. Everyone remembers the Cheshire Cat being like,
"We're all mad here, Alice."
But that was never said by the Cheshire Cat slash anybody in that movie. Like, what?
Most everyone's mad here.
That sounds so freaking weird, and everybody says we're all mad here. I thought this one was particularly interesting because in high school I was a part of the poetry slam team. One of the other teammates wrote a poem like inspired by Alice in Wonderland, and a line in the poem was, "We're all mad here, Alice."
You say it's not your fault, you swear you've gone mad, we're all mad here, Alice.
They rewatched the movie for the sake of the poem and still got the line wrong. Like, I don't know, I don't buy it, but whatever. Another one that really trips me up is Chick-Fil-A. So people remember Chick-Fil-A being spelled a few different ways. People remember it being spelled C-H-I-C, and people remember it being spelled C-H-I-K. I personally remember C-H-I-K, but more people remember C-H-I-C. Turns out it's always been spelled like normal chick, like C-H-I-C-K. Like, no, it hasn't. Like, it makes sense if something was misspelled intentionally and people like misremember it to be spelled correctly, but when your mind assumes that it's being spelled incorrectly, like that doesn't even make sense. In newspaper class in high school, there was like a Chick-fil-A that opened up right by our school. Someone was writing a story on it and they're like, "Oh, how do you spell Chick-fil-A?" And I was like, "Oh, it's C-H-I-K." And then someone else was like,
"No, it's C-H-I-C."
Me and like a few different people, like 3 or 4 different people, we were all like, no, that's not how it's spelled. And we looked it up and it was C-H-I-C-K, and we were all like, so that's what a Mandela effect is. Now, obviously, these could just be like the human mind up. I don't know how we all misremember the exact same details. It's really weird, but like, you know, the human mind does weird things. But brain farts don't make for good videos, so we're just gonna kind of throw that theory out the window today. So the first theory I have for you is that it's because we are in a parallel or alternate universe. I feel like I have to talk about this because it's the most common theory to explain Mandela effects, but I have more interesting ones later on, so just bear with me. So many scientists believe that there are parallel universes, that we live in a multiverse. The idea came from quantum physics. So we've learned through experiments that electrons will split when going through 2 different slits. It will actually break apart into 2 separate pieces so that it can go through both at the same time. It's called the double slit experiment. If you are interested in looking that up, there's some really interesting documentaries online about it. But basically, because of this experiment, many scientists believe that every decision we have, there's a parallel universe that we've made a different decision in. So every time we make a decision, we are split off into 2 different universes. So this morning I chose to wear a white shirt, but there is a parallel universe where where I chose to wear a black shirt.
In a parallel universe where I chose to wear a red shirt. In another universe where I chose to wear a green shirt.
And so on. It's kind of like the cartoon Rick and Morty, if you've ever seen that. Obviously that's like a very cartoon, science fiction-y version of it, you know, for entertainment purposes, but in the show they go around to different universes and like fight battles, and a lot of times they'll run into other versions of themselves in those universes.
What do you know? It's a cowboy version of me. Jeez, you're easy to impress. Yeah, most timelines have a Rick and most Ricks have a Morty.
So the Mandela effect theory here is that there is some sort of glitch between the two universes, like some sort of overlap, or we were somehow in one universe and have since been shifted into another. Personally, this one is not my favorite because I don't really see how we could be remembering something from a universe that we never existed in. So for that reason, I don't really like this theory, but it's really popular, so I feel like I needed to discuss it for a minute. Okay, so my next theory is time travel. Now I know that's another really popular theory, but mine is way more developed than I'd seen any other YouTuber do before, so again, bear with me please. So a lot of people think that Mandela effects are proof of time travel either existing currently or existing in the future, and they're coming back to when we were all alive, so they're kind of messing with our timeline. People think that either they changed a major thing and all the little tiny things that we're noticing are like the aftermath of changing something in history, or they could be going back and changing just ever so slight things, ever little things, just to see the repercussions, see if it changes anything else. So the creator of The Simpsons is obviously a time traveler. Matt, I don't know how he pronounces his last name. I've heard people say it different ways, but like Groening or Groening, or whatever the heck his last name is. But the creator of The Simpsons, without claiming to be psychic, like they've predicted the future an impeccable amount of times. And sometimes it's just they'll allude to something that will happen in the future, and other times it's like full on, like they predicted exactly what would happen. So one of the more subtle ways was predicting 9/11. They hold up a magazine and it has like the number 9 on it, like it costs $9, with the World Trade Center in the background that makes it look like 9/11. Maybe it's just a coincidence, you never know, but it's like if they were wanting to allude to something like that, that'd be a really good way to do it without getting caught. A really interesting one is predicting that Donald Trump would become president. Now you might just think, oh, they did it for comedic purposes, like who would ever think Donald Trump would become president? Like sure, I get that. And maybe sometimes shows can influence people's behavior, like if they predict something happening, Donald Trump sees it, he decides to run for president. The thing that's really interesting is that they predicted an exact scene that would be shown all over the news.
When he escalated himself into the presidential race.
Another really interesting one is that Homer actually wrote out an equation for the God particle nearly exactly how it is well before that was ever discovered. This has sparked so much interest that there's even been a book on it by a mathematician. And you might be thinking, well, why didn't they just get the whole thing right? But wouldn't that alter the course of history? Suddenly Homer Simpson was the person who came up with the God particle theory, not actual scientists and mathematicians, so that'd be way too okay, I give up. So a lot of people think that Matt Groening or Matt Groening or whatever the heck his name is a time traveler, that he came from the future, is taking that knowledge and putting it into a show. And so because of that, a lot of people think that he's part of the Illuminati. It's really interesting to me because there's a lot of Mandela effects or Toto effects about what the globe looks like. So people are saying that maps are changing, that the world didn't look this way before, but basically people think that these major celebrities and these world leaders go back and forth between the Illuminati station and, you know, wherever they actually live, and that's why they have clones. It's interesting if you think about the Illuminati's like goals to take over the world, basically. Like, it would make sense that they would want to change the course of history to somehow benefit themselves. I don't know how Nelson Mandela becoming the president of South Africa would benefit the Illuminati, but I don't know. I mean, alright, so my third theory today is that we are actually living in a simulation. Some scientists even believe that we might be living in a simulation, not saying that they're necessarily correct, but it's an interesting theory. Our lives are basically, we're just created by some higher being, not in a godlike sense, but in a sense that like we're basically video game characters. Like we were coded to be here, if that makes sense. Imagine that we're video game characters and the whole time that we've been playing the game, we have been needing to get like stars. We walk toward the stars, we jump on stars or whatever, but suddenly the game is recoded and now we are going for coins. But there is no trace of us ever going for stars because the coding is entirely different. Whenever we say, oh, I thought we were going for stars, but there's coins everywhere, everyone will just be like,
Oh yeah, you're crazy, like you're just misremembering.
because you just assume that it's always been that way because there's no trace of it ever being another way. Maybe that's it, or maybe there's some sort of glitch in the coding and something changed forever. My favorite theory personally is that it's proof of time travel. I'm not necessarily sure that, you know, it's proof of the Illuminati. I think it's an interesting theory. I think that it is for sure proof of time travel in the future. I don't think that they figured out time travel right now, because why would they be going back in time to like when we were all still alive and be doing this kind of shit? Like, you wouldn't want to mess with your own timeline. So that makes me think that people well into the future figure out time travel, which I really don't think is all that out of reach for humans. Like, all those things that were science fiction before, we've been able to figure out how to do. So if we want it bad enough, I feel like at some point or another, maybe 2, 3, 4 generations from now, like, I think humans will figure out time travel. That's just me. Let me know your thoughts. Another reason why I think time travel makes sense is because there are new Mandela effects, which I think is really interesting because everybody was noticing them right around when Nelson Mandela died, and then there was a brief moment where no one was really talking about them, and then they got really popular in 2015, 2016, a little into 2017, and then they kind of took a back seat again, and now in 2018 they've become really popular again. It kind of makes it seem like that they might have gone back in different spurts and like changed things. They took one time travel trip, changed a few things, went back to their own time zone, took another, changed a few things, you know, and they're like studying our reactions, studying if we notice, that sort of thing. Some of the new Mandela effects are that the Pillsbury Doughboy is now wearing a white scarf. Everyone remembers him with a blue scarf. And I would like to say all these things are not just like rebranding, like people have looked into it. Apparently the Pillsbury Doughboy has always had a white scarf, has never had a blue scarf. A really interesting one to me is that Hitler had blue eyes. I distinctly remember learning about this in school, that he had brown eyes and he had brown hair. That was the weird thing. That was the hypocrisy in it all. He wanted to kill everyone off except the Aryan race, but he wasn't even the Aryan race himself. And I remember thinking about that like freshman year of high school when we learned about it, and thinking like, oh, I wonder if he would have killed himself if he hadn't gotten caught. I always used to think about that because it's like, wouldn't you kill yourself if you think you're impure? Wouldn't you kill yourself? But apparently he had blue eyes all along. He still did have brown hair, but like he had blue eyes. And people might think that, oh, you know, there were pictures of him in black and white. You might have just thought that he had brown eyes, but like, no, I don't freaking buy it, because we talked about that in class. My friend who sent me this Mandela effect, she was like, I remember that being the whole weird thing about it. And we went to different high schools our freshman year. The other day I was at dinner with my family and I asked them, what color eyes did Hitler have? Because we were talking about World War II. It wasn't just completely out of the blue. I don't talk about, you know, I don't just bring up Hitler's eyes in everyday conversation. But anyway, my mom did say blue, but she said she thought it was blue because it was the logical explanation if he wanted everyone to be the Aryan race. But my sister and my dad said that they remember him having brown eyes, and my sister said the exact same thing as my friend and I. She said, I remember learning that he had brown eyes and thinking that was weird because he wanted everyone to have blue eyes. And I'm like, yes, that's what everybody remembers. A less intense one is cheez-It. Apparently it's called cheez-It now. It was definitely Cheez-Its growing up. There was a Z on the it. What the f ever. It's wrong. I grew up eating Cheez-Its. And the last one I'll mention today, Karate Kid. The bandana that they're wearing at one point, everyone remembers it being a red sun, but it was actually a black flower. Like, I even remember that, and I've only watched the show a few times. Like, I remember seeing pictures of it and all that, but now there's no trace of it ever being a red sun, so we're all just crazy, I guess. Anyway, that is all I have for you guys today. Let me know what you remember for all of these things. I'm really interested. Also, I want to know, do you believe in Mandela effects? Because when I mentioned to my family that, oh my god, no, he had brown eyes, they're all like, oh, we must have misremembered. And I'm like, well, how do you just take something like that and just decide that, oh, I guess we were all wrong? Like, that's crazy to me. I don't think mass amounts of people misremembering the exact same detail like makes any sense. There has to be something going on, so let me know if you believe it. I'm not gonna be offended if you don't, but anyway, thank you for watching. Please subscribe if this was interesting. I post every Thursday. Hit the post notification button so that you can be notified whenever I post a new video. All right, I'll see you next Thursday. Bye, guys.